Hello everybody, it's List here, and today we're going to be talking about how wargaming can try to fix their game. I'm going to be giving some suggestions and some things that people from the community have suggested on how to fix their game and how to bring players back. However, first I want to say that we're going to be having a replay in the background here by my good friend Kaviro. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, I don't know how to say it really. And he's going to be doing a lot of damage here in his Leopard. I will also link his channel down below because he is one of the best players in the game, I would say. He has like the most tier 10 gold marks in the entire game. Absolutely crazy player, so make sure to check him out. But he's going to have his replay in the Leopard here in the background to give you guys something to enjoy. So yeah. So starting off, first thing I would do is I would immediately start balancing the premium tanks because they're out of line right now. There's a lot of them that are OP and just clearly better than the tech tree counterparts. I think it's okay for some of them to be better in certain aspects than the tech tree counterparts, or if they are a very niche tank where there is no tech tree counterpart. However, the majority of them shouldn't be better than the tech tree. So I would go and start nerfing them. I wouldn't offer a refund because when you do buy these things, wargaming doesn't have to refund you. A lot of people think when tanks are changed or stuff, they have to be refunded because they were changed of something that they bought. No, that is not true because you are technically renting everything in the game that you ever purchase. Even though it says buy, you're technically renting it and everything is subject to change by wargaming. So it probably wouldn't make people happy, but however, it would also make a lot of people that play the game regularly and go up against these OP tanks a lot happier that they are more balanced. And some of the tech trees I would also buff, like the EBR 105 line. That is one I would definitely do. And some that I would nerf because they're just like blatantly way too good, like the E4, or like there's a couple that are really good. Maybe, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily nerf the Chieftain, but it's definitely too good in too many aspects and it has everything, and that shouldn't be the case. Things would get balanced if I were to do this. The number one tank I would nerf would obviously be the Night Stalker. T249 would be getting some changes because it's not nerfed properly. I would nerf it properly to make it more like the Tessac on Royal Tanks PC, as I think that's a pretty balanced autocannon tank. Also, when they introduced the Squall on Wot Console, it's pretty balanced, I'd say. It's not the best, but it's balanced, and I think the T249 should be playing like that. Next thing is +1, -1. This would be one of the first things to ever come in, and this is something they could greatly do to bring players back to the game. Because when they did this test a couple weeks ago, the +1, -1 test, I really enjoyed tier 8 heavies, especially because I don't know if any of you have played tier 8 heavies in the recent era, but if you get in a tier 10 game, you're cooked. There's nothing you can really do. Yes, you can have good games, and especially if you're a very knowledgeable player, you can still pump out those, very good damage games, 4, 5, 6,000 damage. However, most players cannot do that, and if you're firing standard rounds, or you're playing a very conservative build, as I'm sure a lot of people do, there's nothing you can do to tier 10s, and it's really not fair. And +1, -1 would be a lot more fair. And some of you may say, well, what would you do with the preferential tanks? These would get +0 and -1, so basically they would always be top tier. And maybe you could change them a little bit because some of them might be too good for that, but I don't really think that would be much of a problem, and people wouldn't be complaining about that because that's not really a problem. Also making tier 6 a lot more playable again, because some of you may think the disparity between tier 8 and tier 10 is a lot. Well, try playing a tier 6 versus a tier 8. Maybe some of you don't do that, but I have done that, and it is much more painful because there are some tanks you literally cannot pen. Like some tier 6s, if they come up against like maybe an OHO or like a VK 100-01, there's literally nothing they can do. They can't pen them anywhere, even with premium rounds. They cannot pen them at all, which is not fair. And I think it'd be a lot more fair if they were going up against tier 7 heavy tanks, or other tier 7s that are actually fair, because something like an SFAC right now, it has 780 alpha with both barrels, and it can one-shot a lot of tier 6s, and even some tier 7s, especially tier 7 light tanks. It can just one-shot them, which I don't think that's fun at all or really fair, and it might not even get spotted because you won't be able to spot it because your view range is less because you're 2 tiers down. It's way too painful, and especially this is a turnoff to new players because they're trying to learn the game, and it's just punishing them because they can't learn it, you know? I remember when I was trying to learn the game, and I would get so frustrated because of artillery and stuff. We'll be touching on that in a minute. And tanks that would shoot me unspotted and take all my health, and it was never fun, and I could never learn because I was just getting punished so badly. And I think that would definitely bring players back. I know it would bring players back because whether Wargaming wants to say it or not, when they did that test, I had almost no bot games that whole entire week. It was full. Every lobby was full. Not every lobby, but most of the lobbies were full. And I was getting games very fast. It had so many people coming back, and people were really enjoying the game. There's no real plus or minus to it. The only thing some were saying is variety, but variety is not that big of an issue when it comes to just getting like trampled on and just not having fun because you're in a tier 6 and you're bottom tier against tier 10 or tier 8s. So yeah, artillery would definitely need to be addressed. Some of you may know I do like playing artillery. I don't play it excessively like some players do, where they have, 20,000 or 40,000 games in artillery. That's sick. Don't do that, please, because the glass is broken. I would change it to a direct line of sight mode, similar to how the Sturmtiger plays, where they would be lightly armored targets, basically how they are, and they would be direct line of sight. No overview, no overhead view anymore, because that's really not fair. It's because they can see the whole battlefield. They can hit you from 1,000 meters away, and it's just not fun. So I think direct line of sight would be a lot more fair. I know Chems did a video on his what to do with artillery if he were to balance it, and this is pretty much what he came up with, and I've heard a lot of others come up with ideas similar to this, and I think this is overall one of the best things you could do with it. And some of the tanks you would have to change because they're not built for that right now. You would maybe replace, or you would maybe buff the accuracy. I would say give it Sturmtiger level accuracies, because the Sturmtiger basically has the same alpha as some of the tier 10 artilleries, and I don't think a whole lot of people would be complaining. They would obviously have bad accuracy and a long reload, but the thing for these is they would be to dig out, say, tanks that are hull down. And instead of actually, where artillery is supposed to dig out hull down tanks, but really they don't. They just target whoever's closest, and if you're pushing up, you're going to get punished by artillery. Or if you're in the back of the map, not by anybody, and you accidentally get spotted, somebody spots you, artillery is going to hit you because it just does. And that's not fair. So direct line of sight would be a lot more balanced, because say you're hull down on Banana Road on Himmelsdorf, the artillery would actually have to come down that road at the end of it and take shots if it wanted to shoot somebody, and it could splash them because it has a great alpha, so it could splash people for a good amount, similar to a Sturmtiger. However, it would not really have armor. So there'd be ways you would have to balance this. You would have to test things. It'd be trial and error, but this is the best thing I think you could do. Something I would add is more options to the game. There are a lot of features they have right now that don't necessarily have on or off features, like for example the new border that they put in, where it's a red border, almost like a glass border along the border of it. Before it was just black and white dotted lines, which was perfectly fine. I had no problem with that. However, they added this new red border, which I absolutely hate the way it looks, and you can't turn it off because that's just how Wargaming does things. They never make anything a option, it feels like. And I feel like a lot of people, actually I do know some people that were complaining about this, and even said maybe it would be nice if they could customize the color of the border. Say if they wanted that wall on, it could be a blue wall or a white wall or whatever, the options could be. But I do think there needs to be some changes to some different things like that, because there are some things you just can't turn off if you don't like them. If you've ever looked at World of Tanks PC, they have so many options. They have pages and pages of options. I wish ours had something. Maybe not to that extent, because I know it's a PC game. I'm not sure if you can do all that on console, but I would definitely add some more options to some things that people wanted. A second potential way, which you could maybe even add to this, is the new T-31 tank that has been introduced, where it is a direct line of sight rocket tank. It is a tier 6. However, it also has a artillery mode, but it doesn't have the top-down artillery mode. It has the almost 45-degree angle, is what I might call it. I'm not exactly sure what the name is for it, but basically this it's a medium tank, but it does artillery things as it shoots rockets. It can only shoot close range, which that could potentially be another way to balance artillery, is making them pretty much close range to where they can't hit stuff across the map, so that if you do, overwhelm the flank, that artillery is going to be sitting ducks right there, and you're just going to be able to wipe him out. Whereas right now, he could be at the other corner of the map, and if you go to chase him, he's just going to run away and you're not going to catch him. Another one is our outlines. Our outlines are kind of not that good. They're pretty basic. If you've ever seen PC's outlines, they basically show you what part of the tank is covered by it being red, and what if there's destructible cover in front of them, it will have it as almost like a dotted line, and then anything else that is not covered will just be a red outline. This looks perfect, and I wish World of Tanks console would do something about this. I feel like they may do something about this in the future, because some people have been asking for it, but this is one that definitely needs to come, because when you're shooting at long ranges on certain maps where there's this destructible cover, it may look like they are completely hidden. However, it is this destructible cover in front of them, and they are completely out in the open, which can be a bit annoying when you don't shoot them because you think they're behind cover and they really aren't. And that is something I would definitely want to add, because that would be amazing, especially when it comes to long range maps. Have you ever tried shooting through the sniper view on, say, Westfield over a hill, and there's all that grass in your aim reticle? Well, that is something that PC has where you can turn off, because when you're on the hill and you're trying to shoot somebody, all that grass is up in your lens and it's hard to see sometimes. Whereas the other person that is shooting back at you that is not on the hill doesn't have that problem. And it's a little bit unbalanced, I feel like, where I know in PC you can just turn this off, and this would be another option that I would like to put in, because some have complained about that. Something that people have been talking about here recently is marks of excellence in game. If you've ever watched PC content creators like Ayuxin or Kaju or some of the others that frequently mark tanks, and that is basically what their job is, they have a little indicator. I think they can move it around between the right side or maybe anywhere on the screen, and it shows you what % you're at in game live. So if you get a shot, if you're playing a 4005 and you're at 60%, and maybe you get a couple shots in, maybe you're at up to 6,000 or 7,000 damage, that percentage will update in game. So whatever the percentage is, it would update as you're going up. So if you're close to the mark, maybe you're at 94.5 and you're at like 5k damage and it says you're at 94.9, that means you'll need one more shot. And right now you really don't know if you're close, because you might do 6k or something and stop at 94.99, which is so frustrating. Where if you would have maybe took an extra risk, you could have gotten that shot in. Whereas you didn't know, maybe you thought you had more than enough, so you didn't take that extra risk, which is always something that's really annoying when you get to that. Because then the next game you might have a terrible game and go all the way down to 94.5. And this is something that a lot of people use. I know it's a mod, and Wargaming apparently says that they can't do this, and it's not the way marks of excellence work. It is. I don't know what they're talking about, because PC does it, so I don't see a reason why World of Tanks console couldn't do it. And this would be just a quality of life thing that a lot of people that are going for marks, I know everybody doesn't do this, but there are a good amount of players that do like marking tanks. This would be a humongous plus for them, and would definitely bring some players back, I know. While we're talking on marks, something else I would add is either in-game or maybe on the World of Tanks website, either or is fine because I'm not sure what they can do, is to know what the requirements for every tank is. Because right now you kind of just have to guess. Like when you're playing a tank, you can kind of get a feel for how much it might take to 3-mark it. Like I know the Terran is about 6,000 damage to 3-mark, or maybe a gold mark. It's something like that. It's something high like that. And there's no way of really knowing though, because none of the websites that tell you what the actual requirements are don't really work anymore, because they just don't, I guess. And having this in-game or something would be huge, because then if you're going for a mark, say the Barask, and it says that damage requirement with a third mark is 4,500 damage, then you have a threshold that you know you need to go for. 4,500 damage is what I need to do. Whereas right now you kind of just have to guess, because every tank is different, because some tanks are better than others. Bots would be addressed. I made a video on this a couple weeks ago, and it would definitely be hard to fix exactly everything about the bots, because the way they work and the players we have, but I would definitely try to get rid of them and only use them as a last resort. Whereas right now, you may wait in the queue for like 5 seconds and get a bot game, which is absolutely stupid. I would wait 30 seconds or even a minute. I don't get why it's giving me it after 5 seconds because it hasn't even tried to search for players. I don't know what that's about. I would immediately try and fix that. And I'm not saying that bots wouldn't count as marks of excellence, but there needs to be something done. And this, I can't really go in depth to it now because there's not really a real solution because of some of the problems we have with the player count and the amount of players that are available. So I wouldn't say bot games just wouldn't count against marks of excellence, but we would definitely do our best to eliminate this and try and cut down, because right now marking tanks is absurd. If you want a gold mark, I mean, if you see somebody with a gold mark, it's very impressive because getting a gold mark at this time is very hard, or even a third mark. Third marks are very hard because for a tier 10, pretty much it's 5,000 average damage for any tank except for artillery. And I remember back in the day they used to be like 4,000 something, but some are even up into the 6,000 range, which is just absolutely crazy and makes it very hard for people to get marks of excellence. Something I would add is some sort of competitive matches. I'm not exactly sure on how we could do this because of our players and how everything works. However, a lot of people have been requesting in-game competitive matches between clans, or maybe this is regiment wars. I know they've talked about doing something with this now that they've renamed clans to regiments. I still call them clans because it's been called that forever. But something like this, where it'd be similar to regiment wars or whatever, I'd love to see this added to the game, because I'd like a more competitive portion of the game, where right now we only have one game mode, and that is multiplayer. You can count co-op, but it's the same thing, and co-op sucks. And I think we need to add some sort of extra mode. If you look over at PC, they have all these other kinds of mode, and I don't really know exactly what they all do because I don't like play PC and I don't like follow exactly what all these do, but I know they have like Frontline and Onslaught and a couple of these other ones, and then they obviously have random pub matches. And we need to get some stuff like that, because if it had more variety, I feel like more people would be interested in playing the game. Another thing we need to bring back are war stories. I unfortunately never got to play all these because at the time I didn't know. I guess I was young and I didn't really play the game in that way. I kind of just played tier 2 and tier 1. Not exactly sure why, but that's what I did back then. And this has been requested for forever because I know people want war stories back, and it needs to be brought back, wargaming. So please listen to us. This is something we all want back. But that's going to be it for right now, guys. If you guys have any other suggestions that wargaming could do, drop them in the comments below and I will make sure to read through them. And that's going to end it off for right here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.